I've just attempted the Festive 500 for the first time, and it was an amazing experience. On Christmas Eve, I got up early, had some coffee and breakfast, and then signed up for the Festive 500 on Strava. I also sent my route from Garmin Connect to my Garmin, and then I was ready to go by 10 to 8. It was due to be quite windy, so I decided to set off earlier, but I also re-planned which route I was doing that day to a shorter ride. The first bit of my route was on rural roads that I know quite well. You can see how windy it was based on how the trees and the flags are blowing. And then it was onto the bike path for a little bit. When I decided to do the Festive 500 for the first time, I thought that I'd like to do it in my style of routes, which meant Strava Art. But I do have a Zwift, so I knew I could have done it inside, or some of it inside, as a backup option. Obviously, all of my Strava Art rides don't start at my house, so I decided that would be acceptable, and I wasn't doing 500 kilometres of Strava Art, as I was still including the distances from the start and end. I then zigzagged through the city streets. This meant I was quite happily sheltered from the wind a bit, and also not riding in one direction for too long. I haven't been down here recently, and it was quite badly full of potholes, so I was just trying to avoid all of them. I enjoyed this downhill because usually I have to go up the hill on the other side of the traffic lights, but not today. And this was the very end of my first piece of Strava Art. It is 10:15 on Christmas Eve. I've just done my first Festive 500 Strava Art, which was 27 miles. The roads aren't as busy as I expected, so that was good. And I've got about 9 miles to get home, which I'm expecting to be bike paths and headwind. I was glad to be on my bike. Just look at that queue going into Foss Park. And then I was back, and the turkey was already in the oven. This is what today's route looked like, and it was 61 kilometres in total. On Christmas Day, I had a rest day, but I got one very exciting present. Is it Festive 500 one? Thanks, Mum and Dad. On Boxing Day, we had an early lunch because my brother was working, so I managed to get on my bike by 1:45. I headed out along very familiar roads to Barwell and then to Bosworth Battlefield, which is a road I usually do in the other direction, up the hill. The roads around here are busier with walkers than cars. I continued towards Upton and then turned around and headed back to Market Bosworth. I planned half of this route in 2021, but wasn't quite sure what to do with it because it wasn't quite finished. Then I realised that it just needed to be Santa got stuck up the chimney, rather than Santa. And I have been singing When Santa Got Stuck Up the Chimney when I've been going along some of these roads since the summer. After a bit of zigzagging north of Market Bosworth, I stopped for a banana in Bilston and saw this cute little reindeer. I have done about 29 miles, so over halfway, and I just stopped for a banana. The first bit was very slow, took me a long time to get going, but all is good now. Thank you. By the time I had finished my Strava Art and was heading home, it was getting dark, which meant I got to enjoy some Christmas lights. And this is what it looked like. Another 87 kilometres ticked off. On the 27th, I wasn't too keen on a ride because the weather was bad, but me and my dad went out for a bit of urban zigzagging. I thought this bit might be flooded, because the image on Google Street View is, but I was glad it wasn't. And then because of the weather, I didn't turn the GoPro on until the very last road. We're going all the way round, Daddy! Okay, we're done! And it was shaped like a present with wonky ribbon. Another 51 kilometres done. On the 28th, the weather was bad again, so I just went for a short ride, but look at the puddles down here. This route had a lot of zigzagging and going one way and then turning around and going back, which slowed me down a bit, but it was nice to be out. The weather wasn't as bad as I expected. And again, I timed it so it was just getting dark when I was getting back. This was a route that I had a spare in case I ran out of ideas and needed a little bit of extra distance. But in the end, because of the weather, I thought I'd do a short ride anyway, just to make sure I got the distance. I did 36 kilometres in total this day, and my route was a little snowflake. As I didn't spend that long cycling, I thought I'd show you what else I did that day, which was a little jigsaw, which was quite difficult, but quite fun, and I also made some flapjacks. The 29th was due to be my longest day at 70 miles, so I set off at 8:30 and headed north, which meant I struggled a lot for the first bit because I had a headwind. Of course I had to stop on the motorway bridge to take a video. This is the M1 just north of Junction 22. Once again, I ended up in Market Bosworth, one of my favourite places for a cycle, and I did some roads I'd already done on Boxing Day. From Market Bosworth I headed to Sutton Cheney and then to Wyken, which has a lovely bit of road that goes along the Ashby Canal. I then went through Hinckley and Nuneaton, and I quite like this fountain on the roundabout. From there I went back to Hinckley and along the bike path, which is another one that I know really well. I really enjoyed the last bit of this ride, partly because it's on some of my favourite training roads, but also because there was a road that I struggled on when I recreated my original reindeer earlier in December, because I was so cold, that it was nice to have it on a nice day as well. So my total for this day was 112 kilometres, and my ride was shaped like a stocking, which would have been Christmas Eve's ride if the weather was good. Ideally I would have had more than one day off, but because I did the snowflake on the 28th, I could reduce some of the length of my other rides, because the weather still wasn't looking that good, and this was one of the routes I plotted then. Because I was so close to being able to do the whole thing through Strava Art, but I didn't know how to reduce the length of some of the other routes that I had planned without ruining them. I got off to a good start and was glad to be fully on familiar roads rather than a mix of familiar and not, but then it rained, and that really dampened my spirits. The way I plotted it had a loop between Desford, Kirby Muxloe, along the Hinkley Road and back to Desford, but when I got to Desford I could have turned around and gone back that way, which I was very tempted to do, but I stuck with my original plan. Partly because the rain had stopped, so by the time I got to Desford, I was in good spirits to come down the hill to Kirby again. It was this hill that I wasn't keen on doing twice though. So that was another 66 kilometres done, and my festive 500 almost complete. And then, in the evening, we went bowling, as a family, which is something I haven't done for ages, and was really awful at, most of the time. On New Year's Eve, I had 86 kilometres left to do, and a party to get to, so I got out early, about 8:15. This was my riding into 2024 route. I did one riding into 2022, and into 2023, which were very similar, but I couldn't use the same roads for this, because I couldn't find the right roads that would make the four look okay. I really like these cute snowman decorations and all the others in Stony Stanton. I saw this tree lit up in the middle of December when I came out for an evening ride, but I hadn't seen these decorations, and they made me smile, especially this one.
Morning.
I then headed to Huncut, where I encountered a problem. I had a tailwind going this way, which was nice, but then I turned around and had to face this headwind as well. I've just stopped for a banana and a fudge, and I've got 20 miles to go, which should have a tailwind home, which is going to be lovely. I thought the tailwind along here would be a lot stronger, so I was most disappointed that it wasn't so easy. The decorations in Cosby were also beautiful. And then I headed out of Cosby to finish the last bit of Strava Art. In the end, it worked out about 410 kilometres of Strava Art. I'm ready. 106 kilometres done this day, and the last bit of Strava Art. 521 kilometres completed in total, and that was my festive 500 done. Difficult, but worth it.